Episode of the Joe and Doug Show. We're pumped that you're with us. It is a beautiful, rainy, sunny, can't make up its mind kind of day here in Youngstown, but it doesn't matter. It's a good day because we're breathing, we're above ground, and got the world to change, things to do, people to meet. It's a good day. So Joe is doing well.
I'm doing well. How about you?
It is Joe's wedding anniversary.
Yes.
How many years?
19 years.
That was quick. That was good. You've been practicing that all day.
I know. I asked her this morning, like, how long has it been? Or it was more like, I know how long it's been. How much long do you think it's been?
And it's Joe and Debbie's been married 19 years. And so I thought for the topic today that we would talk about building things that last, because we live in a world where stuff is made to be broken. You know, you buy a washer and dryer or an appliance, and it's literally designed that certain parts are going to fail before the machine itself will be done. Where in a bygone era, you didn't just throw it out because it broke. You fixed it and it was worth fixing. But anymore, you just go buy another washer, you go buy another dishwasher, whatever it is. And unfortunately, I think that's seeped over into marriages and relationships. We live in a culture where promises are made to be broken, not kept. And whether
all you gotta do is apologize. That's all.
Right. Well, and that's true. You know, whether we're talking a politician, whether we're talking in the case of marriages and divorce and stuff like that, I'll make a promise to you until it becomes inconvenient for me to keep. And somebody who's been married for 19 years, I thought this would be a great jumping point to talk about building things that last. So, yeah. What do you think? 19 years.
Okay. So I'm an impulsive and compulsive person, but when I drill into something I want to have something lasting, I move so slow. It's not even funny. I dated for 10 years before we got married. So
you guys dated for 10 years.
So 10 plus 19, that's a 29 year relationship.
You guys started dating at 12.
I was 15 and
okay.
Yeah.
So you met in high school?
Yeah. High school sweethearts. So,
how'd you guys meet?
In study hall. I was sitting by my friend in study hall and I was making fun of her. She was sat next to my friend and that was it.
Did you pass her a note or?
I don't know. She was a nonconformist. So anything I did that was traditional, she would reject.
Well, that's perfect for you.
Exactly.
And what was your first date?
I don't know.
Did you go to a movie or no?
Maybe. She has this famous line where I said, hey, if you want to go see him, if I can borrow a couple bucks from my brother, would you want to go see a movie? Because that's smooth. You know, that's one thing you set somebody up with. You let them know that you have no money whatsoever.
Yeah. It's all uphill from here, baby. It's good. And then, so you dated 10 years. So you went from 15 to 25.
Yes.
Then you got married, so you dated all through college. Was that long distance? You go to the same college? Were you guys?
She went to YSU. I only went to YSU for like one semester, and then I bailed. And so, yeah, I didn't.
You entrepreneur, you.
I know. That's all we do. We're like, I could do this.
So you guys, same grade, same.
No, she was a senior. I was a sophomore.
Oh, you went after an older woman. Look at you.
Come on, I have slayed every giant that I've ever gone after. You think I'm going to make it easy?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, that's great. And so you got married at 25. Where'd you guys go on your honeymoon?
I think we just did a road trip. I think we liked the Virginia Beach and down the coast.
Okay.
Like what we do.
Yeah, I was
going to
say.
Yeah.
That sounds like what you're about to do again.
And don't ask me any more of these questions because I think the depth of my knowledge has already been exercised.
I should have had Deb on the show.
Yes, right. Because I don't want to say I don't know anymore.
Oh, that's so funny. And then, obviously you guys settled into, being business owners and entrepreneur life, and she's a school teacher. Have things gone the way that you planned at 15? You know, if you were to go back and talk to your 15-year-old self when you guys started dating, would you be surprised at where you're at now? Or would you
Me? Not a chance. It was all exactly how I was going to get on. Now, on her end, there's no way she could have painted this picture ever.
Yeah. What about it would surprise her?
Like she knew who I was, but she didn't know that this is who I was as an adult too. Like when you dabble in getting into messy stuff and taking risks and whatever as a kid, that's understandable. You light something on fire and call it a day. But I continue to do that as an adult. And I know that she probably didn't think that was a possible endeavor for an adult.
Yeah. She thought it was just a phase.
You're right. I'd have to, get a real job and 8 to 5 and dog picket fence, the whole thing.
Yeah. That's wild. So what have been some of the keys for you guys in building long term? You mentioned when you're going to build something for the long haul, you build slow.
Yes.
But what have been some of those things for you guys, principles that maybe transcend even marriage, that have been keys to, hey, we're building something here that lasts?
Well, Deb's pretty rock solid. So she didn't have to do much. I had to like work myself around her so that I could kind of accommodate more of a traditional mindset until she kind of got used to it. And so like, I kind of always knew about me that the way to make something last is to take any one of my temptations and squash it as fast as I can. So if I'm compulsive, right, then I've slowed myself down. And you know, what resonated, what theme kept coming up was that. All right, let me collect my thoughts again. That just went right out of my head.
Well, you know, in building for the long haul, I know for Sam and I, you talk about moving slow, but you have to have some sort of shared goal or vision, shared direction that you're headed.
Oh, let me get the.
Go ahead.
Gone again.
Wait, left.
Yeah.
You're getting ready for vacation. But you have to have some sort of shared vision or goal, because if you don't have a direction that you're headed, you'll wander, and sometimes you won't go anywhere. Sometimes wandering's good, but most of the time, if you have a target, then you're both rowing the boat in that direction. What I find for a lot of couples, businesses, whatever, that don't seem to last the test of time is they don't have a shared destination. They kind of either both have separate goals, or they don't have a clear goal. And some people are rowing that way. Some people are, rowing that way. Other people are throwing stuff overboard, saying we're all going to drown. And if you have a clear goal and you have a cadence and a direction you're headed, whether you get there in 50 years or 1 year, it doesn't matter, because we're in this for the long haul.
Right. And the thought was, I noticed this theme that I had to give up the short term in order to get to the long term.
Yeah.
If anything looked like it was coming together in the short term, I knew that was probably sort of the transactional version. And I had to get over that to get to the longer one, more solid version that was a little bit harder to see.
Well, and the long-term stuff is what everybody wants.
Right.
Everybody wants the success in business. Everybody wants the success in marriage. They want the kids to be the right way. They want that house. They want the good stuff, but the good stuff takes a long time. It takes energy. It takes direction, and it takes just the right poise to build something that's going to last.
Can I give you the speech?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if I'm really supposed to say this, but Deb's gotten used to me saying things I shouldn't say. So the speech I gave her, and this was like really early on, before any of the companies looked like it could make more than 20 cents an hour, kind of a thing. and I said, here's what's going to happen. I said, we're going to be together, and you're going to watch everybody, like pass us by like they were on rails, and we're going to be on like a snail. You're going to watch everybody look like they're getting so far ahead of us. Yeah. But you're going to have to be patient with me and go really slow, because when ours is going to take a really long time to put together, but once we're solid, it's going to be like a rocket booster on the back. So have faith and trust in me. I know what I'm talking about on the math behind this. And the whole time, like when we're trying to write, $700 for the bills of the $500 paycheck, she's like, how's that rocket booster coming?
Can I help with the gas here? And that's the hard part, is people end up trading the short term for the long term. They'll trade, well, I don't want to wait for that, so I can get this now. So I'll trade that. I'll trade I'll go to work for somebody else instead of working on my own company, even though the cost in the long run is you're not going to have your own business. You're going to work for somebody else, and then you're going to complain 5 years in, 10 years in, when you watch somebody else, I had that business idea, or if I would have just worked that. But it's true. Anything that's worth having, it takes work, dedication, direction, and time. And so most people, though, don't get to that long haul spot in their marriage. They don't get to that long haul spot in their business, because they're just looking for short term. Let me get the money now. Let me do this now. How do you overcome the microwave mentality, right? The best meals are meals that take sometimes days to cook, preparation and marination. And, you gotta get all the ingredients just right. And then, sometimes the cooking takes hours, and then you can throw that same turkey dinner in the microwave, hungry man in there in 2 minutes, and have food, and it's just not as good.
Right. So I think about that every once in a while. Like, what happened during that speech? If Deb was like, no, I'm not going to wait around. Come find me after what you say has worked out, and then we'll meet up. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's sometimes what it is. There aren't every relationship that's willing to like see you through. You got to be an independent person And if you're talking the words, you got to believe in it. And, my early theme was, I'm not one of those early out. When it gets scary, I'm a double down. Like most people get to the scary part is like, I'm out. Not me. I'm like, all right, you want to piss me off and get me scared? Boom, here's some more, and that would terrify some people. If your relationships aren't, and you don't have people around you that can handle that kind of stuff, that can be a little bit frightening.
Yeah, especially when you double down and all wisdom is telling you don't double down. This is all got the writing on the wall of a bad thing, and you're like, no, I believe in this.
But it has to be coupled with that slow process before that. I don't start the process without knowing the math was already there in the first place.
Yeah.
So I decide whether I'm going to do it like lot over time. But once I pull that trigger, it's game on.
Well, when you talk about building over time, you're not talking about a hand of blackjack where you're like, hey, double down. I think I got the goods this time. You're saying I've methodically laid out all these pieces and I've worked at that. And it's the stream wearing down the rock.
Exactly.
And hey, it just isn't going quite the way I want. I'm doubling down on this.
I thought it through until if you came up to me, you couldn't give me a suggestion that I already hadn't thought about.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's good. So for you and Debbie, do you guys have any special celebrations that you do typically for an anniversary or birthday? Are you big on celebrating those things?
We're gonna do something for the 20, and she wants to get like remarried, and maybe you as a pastor could explain the whole remarrying thing.
Yes. So there's a spot in Israel. Joe's coming with me to Israel. This is going to happen.
I have a feeling it's going to be on the 20-year anniversary.
So a lot of people renew their wedding vows in Cana in Galilee, which is where Jesus turned the water into wine at a wedding. And so there's a chapel there, and a lot of people will go, and they say it's about the location where this wedding took place, and they'll do vow renewals there. And it's not necessarily a big you're not going to invite your friends and family necessarily to all come over there. It's something special for the couple, but it's very unique, and people do it there. But you can do it a lot of different ways. My parents did it on their 30th. And they just essentially did their vow renewals and got a chance to.
Is there a spiritual like anchor to this, or is this just to make people feel good about the relationships? And
it's interesting. My wife and I have talked about it, and I've heard other couples say, well, I meant them the first time. I haven't broken them. Why do I need to re-up them? It's a fair question. But I think the idea around most of it is just celebrating the milestones for most people. Sure. I mean, anytime you pause with your spouse to celebrate a 20-year or 30-year anniversary, not just with a vacation, but, take moment and really take inventory. I think there's a spiritual element to that. Celebrating stuff's good. I think that's probably another underpinning of building something in the long term. I think of the movie The Social Network. I don't know if you've seen that with I'm sure you have. And when they get to their 1 millionth user and they have the countdown or whatever, and there's drama going on in the background, but they're there to celebrate. This has been a long time coming. We've worked hard for this. Now we have an office and we just hit our 1 million or 10 million users on that. And, you have to celebrate the milestones along the way. So something like that's a great thing to celebrate. If you're going to celebrate with friends and family, obviously you're not going to do a destination thing over in Israel, but I do know of a bunch of couples that will make that a part of their Israel trip. They'll go
and I know it might mean a lot to her and me. I mean, I write down goals on the back of the door and then notice 2 years later that I hit them, and I'm like, oh, look, put a new thing up there. It doesn't make the needle, move anymore. But like, if we're going to refinance the mortgage, I want to make sure that I add some, there's a benefit in there. So maybe I get a better interest rate on the second marriage. I don't know. I'm being funny, Deb. Just funny. I'm being funny.
No, I think there's not necessarily anything significant in terms of having to do that or whatever. It's just the pause to say, Joe, I love you. That's the pause.
I do that every Friday, though. Does that count?
Yeah, there's something about routine, but there's something that makes it special when you pause. In the Bible, Joe.
I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, do it. I
can't do it for just the Bible. You gotta give me a scripture. It's a scripture button.
God tells the Israelites multiple times throughout the year, hey, all of life stops. You're going to go away for a week. Everyone traveled to Jerusalem. And there was a spiritual significance to it. There was some worship that took place. But for a week, in some cases, 10 days, a few days, they would celebrate these big moments. Passover was the celebration of them coming out of slavery in Egypt, and it was a big celebration. There's certain foods and certain festivities, but most of those weeks, I mean, it was really God's way of saying, like, hey, everybody pause. I know you worship me, every day. I know you pray. I know you do all this stuff, but 3 times a year, you're going to come to Jerusalem. You're going to come on vacation. We're going to get some adult beverages and a DJ, and we're going to relax for a week. And they would bring them in for various celebrations and, to have that moment. So there's a cadence to that, I think, biblically, to pause at those milestones like being married and celebrating with your spouse, and even having those, even as a family. Some people do it around death, which sounds a little morbid.
Weird,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a little different. But like growing up, my dad would go to the cemetery and put flowers by his mom's grave. And while he was alive, he would say to me all the time, he was like, you guys are gonna come by my grave. And we're like, absolutely not. Like, you're dead. Like Dad, like at the end of the day, like, I love you. And what I believe is that your soul's with God in heaven. Like, why am I going to show up and talk to you at the cemetery? Like, that
don't need to.
No.
Like, right.
And they used to drive him nuts, especially as I got older and I was formulating more of my own thoughts, and God only knows what he thinks now. He's in an urn, so
Right.
he's not even in a
You know what I like most about the conversation here? We talked about like long-term things, and I went right to my marriage as the thing that is most valuable to me. That's
Absolutely.
the coolest thing about this conversation. I didn't go heirlooms or what my pension is or something I'm going to inherit. Went right to
there's never you never see a hearse pulling a U-Haul. You just don't. The things that matter are the people, the relationships, the spiritual things, the intangible things that you can't measure in, a bank account. Bank accounts are nice. Houses are nice. Stuff's nice. But the stuff that helps you experience those people more is even better. But, ultimately, it's the people, it's the relationships, the people that have the depth of relationship and impact people have, the biggest funeral. You hear Gary Vee say all the time. He's like, I just want crap ton of people to show up at my funeral and be like, that guy added a ton of value to my life. And that's an interesting way to look at that kind of moment, because what are you building for? You talk about success. Success is great, but success isn't legacy. It's not significance. And so, you're building for what you're building for. And if you don't have a target, you're not going to hit anything. So what's Joe shooting for?
I think I'm an influx, always shooting for stuff. Are you talking about with?
Well, I think at your funeral, what do you want people to say?
I'm kind of with Gary. I want to have affected more. I want a stadium to be filled with people that I've affected, and I want the slow clap to come out. That's what I want.
My dad said he always wanted to be propped up in his casket and wanted a mechanical thing waving goodbye to everybody as they came. But that was just his sense of humor.
I'm just silly on this show today.
Yeah.
I'm liking this.
No, and it's an interesting thing to think about when you think about obituary or who shows up, because that's really, it's not just about building a business or even a marriage for the long term, but building a life for the long term. You can make short-term decisions now that seem like the right play, but are they really building into your legacy? Are they really, what are my kids and my grandkids going to stand up and say at my funeral? Like, do I really care about Joe Schmo who watches one podcast who I never meet? Like, yeah, it's great, and I hope I impact, but the opinions I care about, like, I want my kids to be like, my dad was my hero. Like, I want my grandkids to, in that sort of sense. And so to build for that requires certain sacrifices that don't necessarily make sense on the success chessboard. When you're playing for legacy, when you're playing for the long term, it's just different.
All right. Well, here's the one I'm going to hit.
Yeah, that's heavy.
Now, have you ever long-term something, so you invested into a long-term thing, and then you had the realization that thing sucked, and you sort of like have an attachment to it because of everything you have attached to it, invested in it. You almost keep it around for that deal. And if you were able to get rid of it, how'd you junk it?
Yeah. So I have like a smaller example of that. I think the short-term kind of answer to that, and I talked about this a little bit, was our Saturday night services at church. Like, we made a huge investment. I sold the vision. We raised a little bit of money for it. We built teams for it. We seated people over for it. And for 3 years we did great. And then COVID kind of squashed it. Came back from COVID. It didn't bounce back, but it was my baby. And I knew it was dead. Staff knew it was dead. Board knew it was dead. Everybody I talked to, it's like, well, do we infuse it with some stuff? Do we just try and, maybe it needs to just be pumped back to life? Do we try and really resurrect it? Or do we just call it a day? Do we give it its send off and move on? And the best thing we ever did was throw a funeral for that thing. And I had to have my moment and like, all right, yep, it was a good idea at the time. It served its purpose. It taught me this, and I had to be willing to release it. Now that's on a smaller level. I think when you invest in a larger thing, there's some people that will go through midlife crisis, right? At 45, they'll wake up and go, man, I've spent 25 years investing in this career and I've hated it and I'm stressed and my health isn't good and my marriage isn't good. And my kids don't even know me. And they're going to try and make a huge shift at 45. You hear that, quite a bit. For me, I want to slowly and carefully build that. And I'm always evaluating, and I know you are too, because I'd rather course correct 1 degree than 20 degrees. So I'd rather look at this in 6 months and go, you know what? It's not really bringing the return. Maybe we can let it go for a little bit longer, but I'd rather course correct now than, they
Put
say
a little bit of pressure on it to see what you thought is true, get some more data out of it. But if you just kind of let it bob on its own, you'll never know whether or not it's as bad as you think it is.
Well, and the same thing's true. You think about our kids, you're investing in these little lives. And the big secret is no parent really knows what they're doing. We're making it up as we go. We're using the stuff that our parents used for us. We're using maybe a couple books that we read, and the rest of it is just like, well, I hope I'm doing this right. Let's take a swing. And I do more apologizing as a dad to my kids than anything else, because there are times where I'm like, I totally botched that. Like, you know what, Benny's, come here. I was like, Daddy, sorry. I should not have handled it that way. That was not the way to do that. We're going to learn from that. And next time we're going to do it different. One, I want him to know I'm not perfect and that, he shouldn't expect that, because sometimes, especially in that age bracket, 4 to 9, you're looking and mom and dad can do no wrong. It's just built into the kid's psyche. And I want them to understand, like, hey, daddy makes mistakes all the time, but we own it and we course correct and we fix it and we don't do it next time. So, but when you think about building for the long term, I know so many parents, especially when I was a youth pastor, they'd get their kids to 13, 14, 15. And at that point, you're not pouring anything in unless they let you. And they would come to me and they would say, Pastor, fix my kid. I'm like, it's over at this point. Like, fix your kid, what, in an hour and a half a week? Like, I see him, one Wednesday night a month.
Let me pull my time machine around.
Yeah. I was like, you needed to fix them at 7, but you weren't willing to discipline them, or you weren't willing to invest the time, or you were too busy, or life had you, or you were too insecure, or whatever. And, we can play the blame game all day long. But by 13, 14, 15, you're looking back and you may have buyer's remorse on what you put in. So I evaluate a lot with myself as a parent. Is probably a deeper one than just like the Saturday night service thing, because I want to be a great dad, and I want my kids to not just have a good childhood, but I want them to be raised to love God. I want them to be raised. I want to pass down my values. I want to pass down philosophy. Like, I want them to dream and I want them to chase, and I don't want them to fear. And so I'm constantly calibrating my language. I'm constantly thinking through, like, that was so negative, or I should have said it this way. Or even the one time I think we were at your house and we talked about it might have been Debbie that said it. We were saying one of the kids to be careful. And that's a word we've really tried to phrase. We've tried to get away from. With Charlotte, we would say be brave all the time. Every time we want to see be careful, we would substitute be brave. Nice. And then we got 3 boys and they just beat the crap out of each other. And I don't have to tell them to be brave. They put that to the test. I'm constantly like, I don't want to go to the emergency room. Maybe we need to be careful.
Less brave.
Right. Less brave. But there's such a tension with that, because I want to recalibrate and I want to think through my language in that, because as a parent, I know I got till about 13, 14. And then at that point, I know we say 18's an adult and there's still some stuff they'll come to, but if I don't lay the right foundation between now and 13, Sam and I just had this conversation. Charlotte's going to be 10. I'm like, we have 3 years. I was like, we need to be very intentional with what we do in the next 3 years, and what we pour in and what books she's reading, and the experiences we have with her for her 10th birthday this year. Charlotte's very excited. We just discussed it with her, and we talked to grandmoms and all that stuff. And Sam and her are going to go on a overnight trip for 2 days to the Columbus Zoo. Char's been watching this TV show on Netflix of the Columbus Zoo. She wants to be a zoologist. So we're taking her and we're going all in. She's getting like the VIP experience, and she doesn't know, she knows we're going to go to the zoo. She doesn't know all what we're going to do yet, but she has there's a bunch of these experiences that she can have. And we got to work out what all that's going to look like. They might do a night hike in the zoo with a guided tour, which would be really cool. We just want to go in on it because the experience will be worth it. on a couple of fronts. Like, yeah, we could spend the couple $100 on a party or go to a bounce place or whatever, and she'll have fun. She'll have her friends. She'll get some gifts, you know. But we told her, we're like, look, you can have this experience with mommy, and it'll be a girls' weekend. It'll be special. She lit up like nobody's business to have this weekend, and I'm like, girl, done. Like that's what you want. Like, I'll spend the extra money to give you this experience so that you can go have it. And then as we've talked to grandmoms, they're like, well, you know, we'll buy an experience, we'll do this or whatever. It's going to be really, really cool. But I'm looking at that going, art intentionally, I could just do what every other parent does, throw a party, they'll get a few gifts. Yay, you know, thanks, Dad, for the party. Or we can start marking her life in a deep way where when
let's
she's
name
50, she's going to look back and go, at 10, Mom and I took this trip, and she's never going to forget those moments. And that's the sort of like fingerprints I want to leave.
All right, we'll name that. Like, you made an investment in your daughter, and if you were to say, hey, make these type of investments, what would you call that? Like, what are you investing in? It's not a short-term thing. You're like, hey, if you clean your bedroom, we'll take you to the zoo, because that would be a short-term transactional thing. You did there's no prize in it, right? This isn't like a penalty. This isn't whatever. What is it?
So I think, so it starts, 4 years ago, just listening. That I wouldn't know that she wants to be a zoologist. I could have seen like on a school paper she wrote, in the future I want to be a zoologist. But I know that because I've had countless conversations where she's told me details about aardvarks and what temperature they need it and what they eat. And I do not care. and she will go on. I asked her this summer, I had the kids for a few days while Sam was away, and I said, each of you are going to do a writing assignment. Charlotte, you need to do 5 paragraphs and you need to write about whatever you want. Graham did 2 or 3, and his was crazy made up story that made everybody laugh. But Charlotte gave me all the facts on like mule deer, and she wrote this whole 5 paragraphs on mule deer, and she didn't look up a single thing, and they were all like accurate, and this is how big the babies are, and this is what they do. She's infatuated with animals. And so is it my thing? No. But man, if that's the fire that's kindled inside of her as a dad, I've heard that now repeatedly, and I'm watching that. So I want to pour gasoline on those things. Sure. And she may never become a zoologist. She may decide that, that was what I want to do as a kid or whatever. It may be, maybe she volunteers at a shelter when I don't know where that passion ends. But it's not for me to decide the end. It's for me to listen, hear, and observe, and then go, all right, I have the resource and ability to just dump gasoline on that, and let's see what happens.
Well, there's a 15-year-old version of Charlotte,
right? That
a memory serves her that when she shared an interest with you, you poured gasoline on it. So she's more likely that when something interests her to share with you, when you invested now, you took it serious.
Yeah, that's the same thing that Graham is like. We got a drum kit, and Graham is like, when can I get drum lessons? When can I get drum lessons? And we had Elijah, who plays drums at church. He and his wife, Mackenzie, came over Sunday. And Graham's like, can I ask him? He plays drums at church. Will he give me drum lessons? I'm like, buddy, you can ask whenever you want. He went right up. He goes, you want to give me drum lessons? And went down, showed him his drum kit, all that sort of stuff. And it was a real cute moment. Sweet. But he's having this moment. He's been talking about playing football for 3 years now. Now we've continued to keep him in soccer because it's flag football yet and stuff like that. But he's like, this is my last year of soccer. I'm playing football next year. Because I told him when he turned a certain age, he could do that. And he's like, wow, I'm going to be 8. I get to play football. And I cannot wait to step into that. Now, I played 1 year of high school football. I played soccer and baseball. Not my thing, but he's going to, I love watching football. I'm going to cheer him on. I'm going to send him to camps or whatever else. And it could be something that fizzles out in middle school. I don't know. But as these passions arise, I think it's our responsibility as parents to not just pour stuff in, but to pull stuff out, because the good stuff's in there. You just got to pull it out.
Yep, for sure. There's some, Deb said that one of your answers is great. She's on team Doug for sure. Yeah. And sorry, Hannah, that's all I gotta say. And
Rick's celebrating 50 years in September. Rick and Nancy, they go to Bridge of Hope. They're great people.
Then Rick says, Bridge of Hope having Saturday got me to offer to play on the worship team, and I have been blessed so many more ways I could ever thought. Thank you for following a call. It may have been just for me. Who knows? And that's good.
That's the goal. Like, we could do this experience with Charlotte, and it could be a one-time thing, and she may decide that she wants to pursue, I don't know, math or whatever. Like, but I want to be there every step of the way to just go, I'm your number one.
The commencement speech when she's on stage with Jack Hanna, she says, my zoology dreams stemmed from my dad taking my dream serious.
That's good. 100%. My parents were the same way though. You know, for everything that my mom and dad, for all the goofy stuff that I look back and go, probably didn't do that right. The few things that they did right, there was never a moment when I said I wanted to go into ministry. They weren't like, well, you're probably not going to make a ton of money. Like there was never that conversation. They're like, if that's the passion, that's what God's calling you to, we're in. And they took me to school. They did every, you know, they didn't have a ton of money, but you know, when I came home, you know, my mom would be like, don't tell your dad, here's $50, you know, like, you know, and then, you know, getting me stuff for the dorm room or whatever they could, every little bit. And even when I was playing sports, my dad showed up to every game. My dad played tennis. And I found out after he was dead, at his funeral, his coach showed up from college. He was like 100 years old and was like, he was the first captain I ever had. I was one of the youngest coaches, and your dad was awesome. All this sort of stuff. I didn't know my whole life. Like when I was a kid, like kid, like Abraham's age, he played a bunch. But as I got older, he worked a ton, and you know, health stuff took a toll on him later, and so he didn't play a whole lot. So I had no idea. But apparently, 2 or 3 of his teammates showed up at his funeral that I'd never met before, and were like touting on that. But he showed up at every baseball game. He showed up at every soccer game, every basketball game, every event that we did. You know, when I none of us played an instrument except my youngest brother. My dad played guitar. I'm sure he wanted us all to play instruments, but he gave us the ability to pursue what we wanted to pursue, and then was 100% in. And same thing with my mom. You know, he did make us every year for 1 week. We had to go to tennis camp, and he would take time off from work and bring his folding chair and sit and watch us at tennis camp. Never played tennis a day in my life, but that was his passion. He wanted to watch us do it.
You did
So
it.
we did it one day of tennis camp.
Kid.
Yeah.
Now my upbringing was about opposite of that, where it was a lot of no's, and I always knew like the strongest no was the first one. So the first question I would ask, it wasn't really what I wanted to ask, is to get that strong no out of the way. Like, hey, can I go on a rocket to space? It would be no, absolutely not. And then the buffered one, the lighter one, was what I was really asking for. So
you were not going after the prettiest girl at the bar. The second one, that was very John Nash of you. So, that's good. Well, I think if you're building something for the long term, I think you have to have a target to shoot at. You got to take your time. You have to get those little 1% corrections rather than big 20% corrections. And you have to be willing to put in stuff that matters for the long term. You know, some of the stuff that parents do with their kids that just don't matter for the long term. Like they don't remember those things. The things I remember are the conversations, the experiences, the moments. I don't remember. Yeah, you go back.
7th birthday. What did you get for your birthday? Don't know.
So my 6th birthday.
You know what? Of course you know.
So my 6th birthday, I guessed every present that I got. And I remember being correct. I remember even guessing, you know, Nerf football, a couple of those things. But I got to the last one. That was my pop-up got it for me. And I couldn't guess what it was. Now, 6 years old for me was 1991, to put it in context. And I wanted Nintendo in the worst way. The regular initial Nintendo came out in 89. Several of my friends had it. I think it was like $99 or whatever. It was a big expense at that time. And I get this box and I'm like trying to guess everything. And my mom's like, you've guessed every one. Aren't you going to be able to guess this one? And I couldn't guess it. When I opened it, I didn't care what the rest of them were. We Mario and Duck Hunt and Paperboy and Super Tecmo Bowl went in on it. And my dad had a rule. You could play Nintendo up to a certain time, but once, I don't know, 7 o'clock, whatever that time was, hit, no more Nintendo, and then you go to bed. Once or twice I played past that time, and he threatened to take a baseball bat to it or whatever. And I was like, okay. So then one day here's the Nintendo on, and he's like freaking out. Now I was asleep. I had no idea. Don was asleep. No idea. Dan was asleep. No idea. My mom's downstairs playing Duck Hunt, going to get my Nintendo destroyed. And yeah, so, you know, those are the goofy things that you remember as a kid. You know, for my 8th birthday, we went and saw Jurassic Park, 1993. I remember getting in my parents' maroon station wagon with a bunch of my friends, and we went to the $1.50 cinema to go see it. So, yeah, but those are the things that you look at. You know, I couldn't tell you. Yeah, there's so many things you look back on that just weren't important, that you worried about, like, and wasted your life and time on, and the good stuff is the good stuff. And it's
and identifying if you're dealing with one of those transactional items. I mean, it is key. It takes a lot of practice to be able to know if I'm investing in a long term versus something that's going to be fleeting and it's just a trendy
well, and so
thing in
many
my
people
head.
live in that stress and pressure. They live in a spot where everything is urgent and important, and it's just not. Just not. Like if I go back to high school and I think of the goofy things that I stressed over, it just wasn't important. Like you thought like my life will be over if this one thing happens. And you stressed out about it and you look at it and like I was like now at 36, I'm like, that was stupid. Like zap took sleep from me. It took,
Right.
sometimes it affects relationships. And it's like, man, like if you could just with an ounce of maturity, just take a step back from certain things and go, the grand scheme of things, there's like 3 or 4 things that are going to matter. The rest of the stuff, okay, if that happens, and I understand that, like, yeah, you need to get good grades, you need that stuff. But like, I look back and I was number 151 of 300 and whatever. It was middle of the road in high school.
I was so good. I didn't even pick up my final report card.
I don't know. In college, I think I was like a 2.8 or 2.9. Like, I learned the information. I was good on that front, but I wasn't going to stress. I wasn't going to lose out on sleep studying for a test. And it hasn't affected, I still get to do what God called me to do. It hasn't affected any of the other course. And some people say, well, if you would have gotten A's, maybe you would have. Sure, we can play that game all day. But I look at where I'm at now and the things that people stressed at and the things that people did, or even relationships. People get into those early relationships, and Sam and I just were never concerned about any of that stuff. We started dating at 16 and 14, our high school sweethearts as well. And I looked around and I was like, I'm going to marry that girl. And everybody was like, because that at 16, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I told her parents that they thought I was crazy. So, but I was playing the long game.
Same here.
Yeah. It's wild. You need to get home and be with your wife.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's your anniversary, dude.
It is too. We're going to celebrate big tomorrow.
Good.
We're going to go out and have a spa day and nice dinner.
Ooh. Massage?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Hot rock?
Oh, probably.
Hot rock is nice. If you've never done hot rock,
she's got the whole thing scheduled, so it'll be awesome, I'm sure.
Cool. Well, you should build for the long term because it's way better. We will not be here on Thursday. I am headed for a wedding in New Jersey. We're celebrating someone beginning the long haul. Pastor Mike and Ashley, we're excited for them. And then Joe's going away on vacation. So we will continue to have the Joe and Doug show the following week. I'll be on with a couple guests, and then Joe's going to be in remotely the week after that.
That's going to be fun. I got my stuff all set up. I'm ready for this one.
You're going to be like on the beach tormenting
totally.
Me. It's going to be pouring rain here, like 65.
Setting behind me. I'm like, this is awesome. This is the way. I can't hear you. The wind.
So we appreciate you guys. We hope you have a good week, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. If you like our programming, we invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Facebook page, or subscribe to your favorite podcast platform like iTunes or Spotify. This is original Youngstown content, and we would appreciate you sharing the videos and the word about us. Thank you.